It's been a little while since I made a video like this, but I think you're going to be quite interested in what has happened here in the developing news. And of course, this object that's in front of me. So you have probably heard that there will be a new iPhone. The iPhone 8, maybe it won't be called the 8. Maybe it's the iPhone edition. Maybe it's just the iPhone and they dropped the number altogether. Maybe there's multiple versions of the next iPhone. So here's the thing, with every single new iPhone that emerges, there is plenty of information that leaks out prior to that device ending up in people's hands and homes. And in this case, we've got a ton of information. If you've been following the leaks, if you've been following the information, then you know that in all likelihood, the next iPhone is going to see a radical shift in design. And so what I did here is aim to give you the best physical representation so far of what that iPhone 8 might be. This is it, the 3D printed iPhone 8 mockup. Ooh, fancy. But Lou, it just looks like a slab of plastic. Well, you're right. And you're probably wondering where this thing came from. Now, believe it or not, I went through the process of actually printing this thing myself based on drawings that were provided to me from Benjamin Geskin. Now, Benjamin has been compiling all of the relevant information on the upcoming iPhone. And when he got his hands on these drawings, I said, yes, please send them to me so that I can go ahead and turn them into a physical object, like I've done right here. And as you can tell, there's a few interesting things about this mock-up that point in the direction of a radical redesign. The biggest difference is going to be on the front of the device. This entire glossy region here is representative of an entire display, of a display that reaches all the way down to the bottom of the phone and all the way up to the top of the phone. Now, this might be hard for you to imagine, so I'll insert some images here of a finished rendering of what that might look like, but in reference to the previous iPhone, you've got these giant sections above and below the display. When it came to the Galaxy S8, one of the things that got most people excited, got lots of people excited, was the screen to body ratio. The iPhone has never had the greatest screen to body ratio. You have a 4.7-inch display in here, and of course on the top and bottom, a big chin, a big forehead, and plenty of space for that home button. Now, the theory is that the new version will do away with the home button, do away with this chin, and instead fill out that space down here with screen. So imagine screen to screen, corner to corner, and a home button, a fingerprint sensor that is embedded below the display, that you will just touch the screen in a particular location, which will provide you with haptic feedback when you choose to use that display viewing video. As far as you're concerned, that will be usable screen space, usable real estate. What I am hearing is this will represent one of the greatest screen to body ratios in the marketplace right now. Let's do some measuring. So I have a ruler over here. If I just line this up corner to corner, which is how screens are measured diagonally, right around in between 5.7 and 5.8 inches, that's a pretty big display given that form factor, 4.7 inches on the old iPhone. Almost identical body size. You've added close to an inch or just over an inch of screen real estate. That's pretty impressive. Now, what about the other measurements? What about the thickness, for example? Are we going to see a huge change there? I've got some digital calipers here to tell us. So, old iPhone, 7.09 millimeters. The new one, so 7.1 here as well. We're probably going to see a similar thickness on the new device. If you know anything about the iPhone 7 specifically, it did not have the dual camera system that the 7 Plus had. This 3D mock-up of the iPhone 8 does have that dual camera setup, and it's a slightly different layout even than the 7 Plus had. Camera on the bottom, camera on the top, it's been shifted. It's now in this vertical positioning, and the flash unit would slot into the center portion of this camera layout. But you're also probably going to see faster autofocus and an improved sensor on both the 8 and the 8 Plus thanks to this entirely new camera layout. Looking at this 3D model, the port is almost identical to the Lightning that we're currently using on the 7 and 7 Plus. Pretty much the exact same layout there. What some people had hoped for is that maybe you would see a more universal platform, USB Type-C, but I've attempted to line up a USB Type-C connector. It will not fit in there. Still no headphone jack. If you thought that maybe your protest would result in Apple bringing the headphone jack back, it ain't happening. It seems to me to be a tiny bit wider than the old version. So if I go right out to the edge of the curve, 2.7 inches across compared to the old one, which is more like 2.6. Now, maybe that's to accommodate that far larger display, which will of course be taller, but it might also be slightly wider as well. Some of the rumors are pointing at the display expanding all the way up into the earpiece section and beyond it, so that the display would actually line up with this top edge. Other renderings have the display finishing just below that. Either way you slice it, there's far more screen real estate in relationship to the body of the device. Another thing to mention, you don't see any cutouts for forward-facing cameras, sensors, and so on. The thinking there is that those will also be hidden and invisible under the display. So the theme here, the trend seems to be to hide as much of the device as possible beneath the screen, so that when you look at the phone, all you're seeing is screen. Some people think this is the most interesting aspect. The materials are said to shift in this upcoming device. So for the longest time now, it's been an aluminum shell. Talk about a departure. The new version is said to be made out of glass and stainless steel, but with glass on the back and glass on the front, there is something that becomes available from a functionality standpoint, which is wireless charging, which I've been a huge fan of, and I do think that the iPhone 8, or the next iPhone, whatever they call it, will be the first to include wireless charging. That seems to be the prevailing wisdom here, because wireless charging can't happen through the old materials. Around the edge will likely be stainless steel. Everybody who's hit me up with tips is coming with the exact same specifics. Stainless steel around the outside, possibly shiny, possibly painted, blasted, kind of like the Apple Watch, if you've seen any of those. And that will be the structure that holds together the glass. The glass is said to be made out of 2.5D material. There's a little bit of speculation regarding whether it will curve or not. I don't think that it will. Now, this edge here will probably look a lot different in the finished model than it does here. This lip will probably fold straight into the stainless steel. Use the Apple Watch as your indicator here. Now, that doesn't mean that the screen itself is curving. The glass could very well curve over this edge while still maintaining a flat screen. Now, one of the key technologies that's going to allow for this incredible screen to body ratio on the upcoming iPhone is OLED. OLED, up until this point, has not entered the Apple universe so far as iPhones are concerned. But if you've ever looked at an OLED display, they're incredible. Namely, the newest one on the S8 and S8 Plus. You're gonna end up with incredibly vibrant colors, contrast ratio, will probably be the best iPhone display that's ever existed. But what about resolution? Of course, it all comes down to those pixels at the end of the day. And the thinking here is that we will see more res. In fact, 2800 by 1242. And that information comes from a leaked Geekbench score. A benchmark test was possibly carried out on one of the earliest models. The one question is battery life, because of course we've got this real nice big display. We have to wait and see on that. And maybe it gets tweaked and somehow manipulated. Maybe the OLED comes out of the box with some power saving stuff, just like the S8 and the S8 Plus. That remains to be seen. So there you have it, the iPhone 8 mock-up. 3D printed, evaluated, with the hands-on right here on Unbox Therapy. This is possibly the closest anybody is right now, other than Apple employees themselves, to what it feels like to hold the next generation iPhone. Many cool developments in here. Let me know in the comments which enhancement you like the best. Also, make sure to subscribe. Click the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, because anything that develops between now and the eventual release regarding the iPhone 8, it'll happen here. And it might happen here first. This iPhone 8 might just be cool enough to have me switch back from Android to iPhone full time. You're gonna have to subscribe to find out.